You are standing in the shoe aisle, holding two boxes, and the only real difference you can actually see is the price tag on the side. I did not believe a cheap-looking test could tell me more than the brand name. I was wrong. I bought 9 pairs of shoes across every price you can imagine, and only 3 of them were worth the money, and it had almost nothing to do with the logo stamped on the heel. The way I finally sorted the good from the garbage came from a trick old cobblers used in about 10 seconds flat, long before anyone printed a marketing tag. And I promise you this, by the end, I am going to hand you a method I found buried in a document from 1943, a wartime instruction sheet that can make a tired old pair last years longer. You already have everything you need for it sitting in your kitchen right now. Let me take you back to the moment I stopped trusting price. I was crossing a wet parking lot outside a discount store, 3 months after I paid good money for a pair that looked sharp, and the entire sole peeled away from the toe like a banana skin and slapped down into a puddle. I stood there in one wet sock holding a shoe that had cost me more than a tank of gas, and I felt like a fool. That feeling is exactly why I started testing instead of trusting. So I did something most people never do. I stopped reading the box and I started reading the shoe. Here is the first thing I want you to understand, because it changes how you shop forever. A shoe is not one object. It is a stack of parts held together in one of a few very old ways, and the way they are joined decides whether you own that shoe for 1 season or for 10 years. Most people assume a heavy, thick, stiff shoe is a strong shoe. I assumed the same thing. I would pick up the chunky one, feel the weight, and think, now that is built to last. That instinct is completely backwards, and I can prove it to you with your own 2 hands tonight. Take any shoe you own and try to bend it. Not gently. Grab the toe and grab the heel and fold it toward itself like you are closing a book. Watch where it bends and watch how it fights you. A well-made shoe bends in one place, right at the ball of the foot, exactly where your foot actually flexes when you walk. It resists, then folds clean, then springs back. A cheap shoe either folds flat like cardboard with no resistance at all, or it refuses to bend and cracks a stress line across the sole. That stress line is a crack that will open up in 90 days of walking. I ran this bend test on all 9 pairs before I wore a single one. The results split the group instantly, and they did not match the prices. 2 of the most expensive pairs folded like wet paper. One of the cheapest bent perfectly and snapped back like it was insulted. I doubted it. But bending only tells you how the shoe moves. It does not tell you the one thing that decides everything, which is how the sole is actually attached to the rest of the shoe. And that, my friend, is where almost every brand is quietly hoping you never look. So I flipped every shoe over and I looked at the seam where the upper meets the sole right along the bottom edge. This is the single most honest part of any shoe, and here is why it matters more than any advertisement ever printed. There are really only 3 ways to hold a sole onto a shoe, and they have been known for over 100 years. The cheapest way is glue. They call it cemented construction, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The sole is stuck on with adhesive, pressed by a machine, and that is the entire bond. No stitching, nothing mechanical. Just glue that will break down with heat, water, and time, which is precisely what happened to me in that parking lot. The second way uses a stitch that runs through the sole and the upper together. They call it a Blake stitch, and it is genuinely strong. Invented in the middle of the 1800s when a man built a machine to sew the sole from the inside, a Blake stitch shoe can be resoled. That is the magic word I want you to remember. Resoled. It means when the bottom wears out, a cobbler removes it and sews on a fresh one, and you keep the shoe. The third way is the one that shocked me, because it is more than 150 years old and it still beats almost everything sold today. It is called the Goodyear welt. Here is the history, because the history is the proof. In 1869, a man named Charles Goodyear, Jr., the son of the fellow who figured out how to make rubber useful, patented a machine that mechanized a stitching method shoemakers had done slowly by hand for generations. His welt machine went to work around 1871 and 1875, and it changed everything. Let me tell you what a welt actually is. In plain words, a welt is a strip of leather that runs all the way around the bottom edge of the shoe. The upper and this strip are stitched together first. Then the sole is stitched to the strip. So the sole is never glued to your foot area at all. It is sewn to a leather band, and that band is sewn to the shoe. When the sole wears out, and it will, the cobbler cuts the outer stitches, peels off the old sole, and sews on a new one without ever touching the rest of the shoe. Do you understand what that means for your wallet? A Goodyear welted shoe can be resold 5, 6, 7 times. People own these for 20 and 30 years. The math is not close. It is not even the same sport. I sat down and I did the numbers myself because I did not believe them either. A glued shoe that lasts 1 year and cannot be repaired, replaced year after year, versus one solid welted pair resoled every few years. Over 20 years, the cheap glued path can cost you 3 and 4 times more money, and you end up with nothing to show for it but a closet of dead shoes and a pile of receipts. Now, here is the part that started to make me angry, and I want to be careful, because I promised myself I would show you the proof and not just complain. When I flipped over all 9 of my test pairs, only 3 of them had any real stitching along that bottom edge. Only 3. The other 6 were pure glue, and 2 of those 6 were the most expensive shoes in the entire experiment. Sit with that. You can pay a premium price and still be handed a glued shoe that is engineered to fall apart, wearing a name that makes you feel like you bought quality. The price tag was not protecting me, it was distracting me. So why did this happen? Why did the world quietly walk away from a method that lasts decades? The answer is not a mystery once you follow the money, and it is the reason I no longer trust a single glossy shoebox. A shoe that lasts 20 years is a shoe you buy once. A shoe that dies in a year is a shoe you buy 20 times. Somewhere along the line, the people making shoes figured out that a customer who comes back every season is worth far more than a customer who is happy for a decade. Glue is cheaper to apply, faster on the assembly line, and it fails right around the time the warranty ends. That failure is not an accident. It is the business plan. They stopped teaching people to look at the welt because a customer who knows how to read a shoe is a customer who is very hard to fool. And the moment I learned to read that bottom edge, I felt like someone had handed me a pair of glasses I did not know I needed. But knowing how the sole is attached is only half the battle, because the sole can be perfect and the rest of the shoe can still be a lie. And the biggest lie of all is written in one little word you have seen 1,000 times and never questioned: genuine leather. I always thought genuine leather meant good leather. It sounds like a promise. It sounds like the real thing. It is, in fact, close to the worst grade of real leather you can buy. And the wording is a trick that has been legal for decades. Here is how leather actually works, top to bottom. When a hide comes off, it gets split into layers. The very top layer, the outside of the animal where the tight, strong fibers live, is called full grain. That is the best. It ages, it develops a shine, it lasts generations. Just below it is top grain, which is sanded a little smoother, still very good. And then, way down at the bottom, are the leftover fibrous layers that get ground up, coated, and stamped with a fake grain pattern to look like the real thing. That bottom stuff is what usually gets called genuine leather. It cracks, it peels, it is real leather the way sawdust pressed into a board is real wood. Now I know what you might be thinking, because I thought it too. This all sounds fine for people who can afford to be picky. But I need shoes now, and I am not about to buy a leather microscope. This next part is for you, specifically, and it is the part I am most glad I figured out, because it costs you nothing. You do not need any special tool to test leather. You need a single drop of water and about 30 seconds. I am going to give you 3 kitchen table tests you can run on any shoe, at home or standing right there in the store, using only what is already in your pockets. The first is the water drop test. Put 1 small drop of water on the leather and wait. Real, quality full-grain leather is porous, so the drop will slowly darken and soak in, because it is a natural material that breathes. Cheap coated leather and fake leather are sealed under plastic, so the water just beads up and sits there on top like it is on a raincoat. Beads up, be suspicious, soaks in, that is a good sign. The second is the smell test. And do not laugh, because your nose is smarter than the marketing. Real leather smells like, well, leather. Warm, rich, a little like an old book or a saddle. Fake leather smells like chemicals, like plastic, like the inside of a new beach ball. I put my nose right down into all 9 pairs, and I could sort them blindfolded. The 2 that failed the water test also smelled like a shower curtain. The third test is the touch and press test. Press your thumb firmly into the leather and watch what it does. Real leather wrinkles and creases in a natural, irregular way, like skin, because that is what it is. It moves. Fake leather stays stiff and smooth or wrinkles in a uniform, plasticky way. Real leather warms up in your hand. Fake leather stays cool and clammy no matter how long you hold it. I ran all 3 of these on every pair before I checked a single label, and then I checked the labels to see if I was right. I was right every single time. The nose knows, the water knows, your thumb knows. The label is the only thing that lies. And here is the quiet outrage of it. None of these tests cost a penny. None of them require a tool you do not already own. Our grandparents did not have online reviews or brand rankings. They had their hands and their eyes and their nose, and they used them, and they got a lifetime out of a single good pair. We traded all of that away for the comfort of trusting a price tag, and the price tag has been lying to us the whole time. So let me tell you how the 9 brands actually finished, because the story is better than any ranking list. I lined them up by price first, most expensive to cheapest, the way we all secretly rank things in our heads. Then I threw that order out and re-ranked them by what they were actually made of. The bend, the welt, the water, the smell, the thumb, 3 pairs passed everything. All 3 had visible stitching along the sole. All 3 drank the water drop and smelled like real hide and creased like skin. And here is the kicker. Only one of those 3 was expensive. One was moderate. And one was a plain, unfashionable, almost boring pair that cost less than half of the 2 glued disasters at the top. The other 6 failed at least 2 tests each. 2 were pure glue hiding behind a luxury price. 3 were coated fake leather that beaded water like a duck. And 1 looked and felt wonderful in every way except the one that matters, the sole, which was cemented on and would have peeled off by spring. That is why the honest answer to 9 brands is only 3 are worth buying. And if you want to go even deeper into this kind of thinking where you learn to measure real value before you spend a single cent, I put together a book that walks through exactly this approach across dozens of everyday purchases. It is called Smart Basics, part of the Deep Frugal and System Complete series, and you can find a link in the description. The whole idea behind it is the same one we have been testing here. The information you need to stop being fooled has always existed, and once you have it, it changes every decision you make going forward. Now, back to what those 9 pairs actually revealed, because the story of how the brands finished is better than any ranking list, not because 6 companies are evil geniuses, but because 6 of them are betting that you will never turn the shoe over and look. Now, I could stop right here and you would already shop smarter for the rest of your life. But finding a good shoe is only the beginning, because even the best welted, full-grain pair will die young if you treat it the way most of us were never taught to treat it. And this is where I found the thing that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. I want to tell you about a document from 1943. During the Second World War, leather was rationed. Shoes were rationed. In Britain, the government ran a campaign called Make Do and Mend, and the Board of Trade actually printed instruction booklets teaching ordinary people at home how to make their clothes and their shoes last far beyond what anyone thought possible, because there was simply nothing new to buy. In America, the War Production Board did much the same, limiting families to a small number of new pairs per year. People could not just replace worn shoes. They had to keep them alive. So what did they do? They went back to knowledge that cobblers and farmers and soldiers had used for centuries, and they wrote it down in plain language for the average household. And when I dug into those old wartime care instructions and the older leather manuals they were pulling from, I found two things that flatly contradicted everything I had ever done with my own shoes. The first one sounds too simple to matter, and I rolled my eyes when I read it. Never wear the same pair 2 days in a row. Here is the reasoning, and it is real science, not folklore. When you wear a shoe all day, your foot puts out a surprising amount of moisture. That sweat soaks into the lining and the leather from the inside. If you wear that same pair the next morning, it never fully dried, and now the leather is flexing while it is damp, and damp leather breaks down far faster. The moisture also feeds the very things that rot the material and destroy the shape. The old instruction was to rotate at least 2 pairs and give each one a full day, ideally a full 48 hours, to dry completely between wearings. Not near a heater, which cracks the leather, but at room temperature in open air. Cobblers have long said that this one habit alone can double or even triple the life of a pair of shoes. Doubling the life is the same as cutting the price in half, and it costs you absolutely nothing but a little patience. I tested it. I took my best welted pair and I forced myself to rotate them with another and let them rest a full 2 days each. After several months, the leather still looked new. No deep cracks across the flex point, the lining still fresh. Meanwhile, an old pair I used to wear every single day had cracked at the ball of the foot in the exact place that damp, overflexed leather always fails. Same brand, same leather. The only difference was rest. But the rotation trick was only the warm-up. The thing from those wartime pages that truly got me was the conditioning method, and this is the finale I promised you, so let me slow down and give it to you exactly. We have all been trained to buy a little jar or a spray bottle of shoe care product with a brand name on it, and to believe that this special formula is what feeds and protects the leather. I believed that. I had a shelf of little tins and cans, each one for a different purpose, each one costing more than it had any right to. The old manuals did not have any of that. What they had was the understanding that leather is skin, and skin needs oil, and the oils that work best are the plain, natural fats that people have used on leather for hundreds of years. In the older cobbling and saddlery traditions, the trusted ones were neat's foot oil, rendered from cattle and beeswax, and simple tallow animal fat. A soldier or a farmer would warm a little fat or oil and work it into dry leather to bring it back to life and make it shed water. Here's the method they wrote down, and here is exactly how you do it this weekend with what is in your kitchen. First, clean the shoe. Not with anything fancy. A damp cloth to lift off the dirt and old grime, then let it dry. You cannot feed leather through a layer of mud. Then, take a small amount of a natural oil. If you have it, the traditional choice works beautifully, but I am going to tell you the plain truth that surprised me most in all of this. In a pinch, ordinary household oils have been used on leather for generations, and even a small amount of something as simple as the oil in your pantry, worked in sparingly, will soften and revive dried leather far better than doing nothing. The wartime lesson was never about the perfect product. It was about the principle. Feed the leather, do not let it starve. Warm the leather slightly first with your hands or a warm room so it opens up. Then, using a soft cloth, apply the oil in thin, even, circular motions. Thin is the key word. You are not soaking it, you are feeding it. Work it in, let the leather drink it for 15 or 20 minutes, and then buff off whatever did not absorb with a clean, dry cloth. I took the most miserable, dried out, cracked-looking old boot I owned, the kind of thing I would have thrown away, and I did exactly this. I cleaned it, I fed it a thin coat of oil, I let it rest, and I buffed it. And I watched the leather change color and come back to life in front of me. The cracks did not vanish, but they softened and closed and stopped spreading. The leather went from gray and dead to dark and supple. A boot I had written off as garbage was, in about 30 minutes and for pennies, wearable again. And then, for waterproofing, the old method was beeswax. You warm the leather, rub a little beeswax over it, and gently melt it in so it fills the pores and forms a natural barrier. That parking lot puddle that ruined my glued shoe would have rolled right off a boot treated this way. People sealed their boots like this long before there was a single spray can on any shelf, and it worked so well that armies depended on it. Here is what makes me shake my head. Every single thing in that 1943 approach was designed to make shoes last as long as humanly possible, because that generation had no choice but to respect what they owned. And we were handed the opposite mindset on purpose. Buy the glued pair. Wear it into the ground in a year. Throw it out. Buy another. Never learn the tests. Never learn the rotation. Never learn to feed the leather. Just keep paying. The knowledge did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because it worked too well. And a customer who makes one good pair last 10 years is a customer who is very bad for business. But that knowledge did not actually die. It sat in old booklets and archives and in the hands of a few stubborn cobblers who never stopped risoling and never stopped teaching. Somebody preserved it. I went looking, doubting the whole time that any of it would beat what I could buy new. And every single test proved my doubt wrong. The bend test, the welt, the water drop, the rotation, the oil, all of it worked, and now all of it is yours. So the next time you are standing in that aisle with 2 boxes in your hands, you are not going to read the price. You are going to turn the shoe over and look at the seam. You are going to fold it like a book. You are going to press your thumb into the leather and put a drop of water on it and see what it does. You will know in 30 seconds what a marketing team spent a fortune trying to hide from you. You just took back something that was quietly taken from you, one glued sole at a time. The ability to tell real from fake with your own hands and to make a good thing last is not a luxury, and it is not lost. It was just waiting for someone stubborn enough to test it. You are the kind of person who turns the shoe over instead of trusting the tag, or you would not have stayed with me this long. That instinct, the one that makes you suspicious of an easy promise, is not cynicism. It is exactly the instinct our grandparents survived on, and it is the most valuable thing you own. So let me ask you something specific, and I really want you to answer this one. Have you ever had a sole peel off or crack on you? And what did it cost you to replace it? Tell me the brand. Tell me the price. Tell me where it happened. Leave it in a comment below, because I read them and I want to see how many of us got burned the same way I did in that parking lot. And tell me where you are watching from, because I am curious how far this old knowledge still travels. If you believe, like I do, that the old ways deserve a fair test before we throw them out for whatever is new and glued and disposable, then come join us. This channel is for people who put the forgotten methods to the test and take back the knowledge that was supposed to stay buried. Subscribe and stand with the ones who still check the stitching, because next time I am going to test an old method for making a worn-out leather sole grip like new on wet pavement using something farmers rubbed into their boots 100 years ago, and I did not believe that one either until I tried it. Now here's the thing. This video only scratched the surface. Inside the Old Ways Almanac, I continue where we left off, showing you what I couldn't fit in here. And you can ask me your own questions and I answer you myself, not some machine. You belong here with thousands of Old Ways folks like you. Just point your phone camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime, one click, no risk. If this helped you shop a little smarter, do subscribe and stay with me. I've got plenty more honest guides right here, all made to save you money and worry.